look now at the latest business news, and the British government has been giving some details about its plans for its future relationship with the European Union. Our business editor Stephen Carl is here to tell us more. Stephen.
Eve, negotiations over a new trade deal set to start in the coming weeks. There is a hope that that deal might be finished by the end of the year. But British ministers have begun warning businesses about how things are going to change. Michael Gove, who's the de facto Deputy Prime Minister in the UK, says border checks on goods will be inevitable and that businesses will have to submit extra paperwork for goods entering or exiting the EU. Now, groups representing businesses have warned that the government will need to act fast to put the infrastructure in place to avoid major disruption from January 2021. Meanwhile, when it comes to services, the UK Finance Minister is going to demand what's called permanent equivalence for the City of London to maintain market access after Brexit. That would, in principle, limit the ability of the EU to revoke access to British firms to the European Union financial markets. This is, of course, an opening negotiating position for the UK. It was revealed in a photo taken of a document that was being carried into Downing Street on Monday. Let's take a look at what's happening on the markets next for you. Asian shares trading up today. That's despite fears of how the coronavirus is going to affect the markets and particularly the economy in China. Nikkei's Tokyo closed today in trading, but the Hang Seng in Hong Kong up by 1.4%. On the currency markets, we have a euro trading for $1.09 today and just under 84.5 pence sterling as well. In the United States, a judge looks set to approve the $59 billion mega merger of mobile operators Sprint and T-Mobile. The decision is expected to be announced later today. The deal was first announced nearly 2 years ago, but had been opposed by states, including New York and California, who argued it would result in higher prices and poorer service for consumers. The United States has charged 4 members of the Chinese military for stealing personal data from the credit rating agency Equifax. Called one of the largest data breaches in history, nearly 150 million people, mostly US citizens, were affected. Luke Schrager reports.
It took 2 years of investigation, but the US Justice Department has finally revealed who was behind one of the largest data breaches in history.
I'm here to announce the indictment of Chinese military hackers, specifically 4 members of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, for breaking into the computer systems of the credit reporting agency Equifax. The hackers obtained the names, birth dates, and social security numbers of nearly 150 million Americans.
Them and more besides. Around 1 million British and Canadian citizens also had their information swept up in the hack 3 years ago. It led Equifax to make a $700 million settlement last year with affected consumers after it transpired it had failed to fix a known security issue the hackers exploited to gain access. The firm harbours huge amounts of consumer data it sells to businesses seeking to verify identities or assess creditworthiness. US authorities traced the hack through dozens of servers in 20 countries back to China. And while the US won't be able to arrest those indicted, for authorities, it serves as a warning.
Confronting this threat effectively does not mean we should not do business with China. What it does mean is that when China violates our criminal laws and international norms, we will not tolerate it and we will hold them accountable for it.
The US has blamed several previous hacks on China, including one in 2015 on the US Office of Personnel Management that led to fears of Beijing using the information to unmask undercover US spies.
Puerto Rico has reached a deal with a major group of its creditors which may help to pave the island's way out of bankruptcy. Under the agreement, debts worth $35 billion would be settled for just under $11 billion. Now, the deal still needs to be approved by Puerto Rico's legislature. The US territory is in the 4th year of a financial crisis as it seeks to cut its $129 billion debt mountain. Uber has failed in its attempts to block a new law offering more protection to gig economy workers in California. A Los Angeles judge rejected claims that the ride-hailing firm, along with the food delivery service Postmates, were being treated unfairly by the law. Assembly Bill 5, which came into force at the start of this year, makes it more difficult for companies to classify workers as independent contractors rather than employees with more rights. And finally, for me, the Singapore Air Show has opened as planned, despite the fears over the spread of the coronavirus. Most Chinese participants in the event cancelled their trips, but up to 40,000 people are expected to attend. The organisers have told industry officials to avoid handshakes in an effort to limit contact that could transfer the virus. Instead, they've suggested bowing or waving as a greeting. Eve.
Stephen, thanks a lot for that business update. Our business editor, Stephen